My name's Eli Delaney, and I have the honor of meeting some pretty cool people. These are the entrepreneurs, the artists, the creatives, the game changers that are making a positive impact in the people that they meet. And I'm a firm believer that the people that you meet can get you anywhere you want to go. And this show is my way of sharing them with you. It's my way of also helping you meet cool people. All right, welcome back, everybody. Eli here, and we are here with another episode of Meet Cool People. Today's guest, cool guy, one of the people that I met through Apex, a year and a half ago, something like that, and we hit it off immediately. Super fun, cool guy, Philip Sessions. And he is helping people become public speakers. He went from being shy, the quiet guy, to the one who commands any room he enters. He is the host of the Speaking Sessions with Philip Sessions. And through his persistent effort and transformational communication methods, he has helped hundreds of others bring confidence and clarity into their lives. So with that said, Philip, thanks for hanging out with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad I'm finally a part of the Cool Kid Club.
Meet cool people, you got to be invited in.
Yeah.
That's one thing. It's like, I don't just take everybody that comes in. And definitely, you were on my list as soon as I was ready to get launched with this one. And you are an early on guest on this. So that's pretty awesome. And I had the honor of being on your show a while back, which was always fun. I think it was very early on yours too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was earlier. I can't remember exactly where, but yeah, it definitely was earlier. And that was over a year ago.
Wow.
That was before you moved to Texas.
It was. So yeah, that was definitely a long time ago, because it was, it's weird that I've been here this long now, because it was October over a year ago. So a lot's happened since then. Well, it's good to hang out with you, my friend. So let's go ahead and kind of set the stage. You are helping people become public speakers, get confident on stage and get in front of things. How did you get started in this stuff?
How I got started was probably not the traditional route. I really started with video content, and the opportunity came up while working with BMW Manufacturing as an engineer. This is going to sound really weird. So I'm a speaking coach who's an electrical engineer. And if you know anything about engineers, electrical engineers are the most nerdy. They're the most quiet. They're the most introverted. And I'm nothing like that. I used to be a very long time ago, but I wanted to get out of my shell. And there was this opportunity about 3 years ago with BMW Manufacturing to go to the HR training department doing this leadership and transformation specialist role was the title of that. Well, I was thinking about leadership and doing some kind of leadership coaching because I've always been able to lead groups and lead others with and without authority. And when I got there, I got pigeonholed into public speaking skills and more specifically presentation skills. And that's when the light bulb went off for me. If a massive company like BMW sees a need for their employees to get better at presentation skills, and this guy over here wants to also speak on stages and get better at speaking and presenting, there's probably a good chance this is going to be a great business to start. And so as an entrepreneur, that's what I decided to do. And it was probably about another 6 months or so later. So I'm coming up on 2 years of my LLC. So my timeline's clearly not that great here, but I decided to LLC after being in that role for a while and seeing that there was this huge need there and seeing how I was already creating impact and through the videos and everything. So long story short, I guess the real catalyst overall was getting into this role and seeing that need for a massive company and how I wanted to bring that for those outside of this massive company to help them.
Nice. Very, very cool. So let's kind of set the stage for your, when a client comes to you, what are your typical clients? Because I've been in the speaking world for a really long time. You and I've talked about this, that I've worked with speakers and coaches in that arena for over 15 years. And so there's a very wide arena of where people come into the game. Where are people coming to you at? Where are they when they come to kind of get some of your knowledge?
I would like to say most of them are coming in when they've got a speech that's 3 or 6 months out and they're ready to get prepared and spend a lot of due diligence to really nail that presentation down. But typically it's like, oh, I've got a presentation in 2 weeks. I need your help. And I've known about it for a month. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
and I see you're cringing right there with me. So, most of my people that
Yep.
I work with tend to be people that are getting prepared for a speech. And
Okay.
unfortunately, they're usually waiting too long. We help them out. And I've actually helped several startups. In fact, I helped 3 startups with one coaching call. And I can say for certain that at least one of them, if I had not helped them, they would not have won. But the other two, I'll give them some leeway that they did a lot of the work, but I still gave them a lot of guidance and strategy on their pitch. They all 3 of them won $250,000 each from the Department of Energy because of one coaching call with me, and it was literally the week before they were supposed to go pitch for this funding.
Right.
Why people wait this long, I don't understand. But then we have the other side that I get a lot of my clients to come in as well, that they just don't feel comfortable with speaking on camera, in front of people, even in a small group. One on one may be about the most they're comfortable with. And so those are the other kind of people that are waiting till the last minute to get help with the speaking coaching,
Mhm.
or people that are really uncomfortable, they're shy, and they've seen my transformation, they see how comfortable and confident I am in speaking, and they want to be more like me.
Okay. So that brings me to a really interesting conversation, because something I hadn't you mentioned something that's a different arena that I haven't really dealt with, because I've dealt
Mhm.
with, like, my primarily most of my clients in my arena has been the speak to sell. So you get on
Mhm.
stage, you do your presentation, and then you sell something at the end. And then I know a lot of people that are get paid to speak, and then in that arena, and I don't do as much with that, but I am very, very familiar with it. But you brought up a completely different arena that I haven't even dealt with before and didn't really think about it this way. It makes total sense, but I didn't think about the fact somebody who's doing a presentation to, like, get a grant or get funding or win an award or things like that. That's a totally different arena that's not really talked about as much in the speaking world. So let's touch on that a little bit, because I think that's something that people might need to be aware of. That's even a possibility. So for businesses that, there are these kind of funds available, why their speaking skills are so important for that.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I found with working with these startups, working with these people that have to go do a presentation in front of board members, in front of people that are judges that are going to give them funding or give them approval to work on a project or release the money to be able to work on that project, however that looks out in the end. Essentially, this is a pitch. So really, it comes down to being a sales pitch. And the problem that I've seen with most people is they'll talk about what they're doing. They'll talk about the data. They'll talk about all these little details that don't matter to the judges. And they don't talk about what the next steps are. And I always say you have to cast the vision. You're selling the vision. You're not selling the product. You're not selling the service. What does it look like on the other side of using your product or service, especially if you're a coach like me? If I just tell you, oh, we're going to go through and help you get better at videos, and this is what we're going to do, and here's our 18-step method, you're going to be like, well, that's cool. But what does it look like when I get done working with you? And if I can't help you understand that you're going to be more confident, you're going to look better, people are going to recognize you, you're going to have more authority, and I can't help you understand what that looks like for you, you're not going to want to work with me for one. But when it comes to these funding rounds, if I'm about to hand you a check for $250,000, do you not think that I want to know what's going to happen with that money? And yet, all these startups that I've helped have sat there and just talked about the things that they're doing now. And part of it, they have to present some of that stuff because this
Mhm.
is like a multiple funding round thing.
Right.
But they kind of talk about what's happened, what they've been doing, what they're working on, but they don't talk about the future. You're getting this money to go do something. I don't want to just, oh, here's $250,000. Have fun. We'll see you later. No. And going to the corporate world as well. If you are wanting to do something, I want to know, what are the next steps? What are you planning on doing with this? Because I want to know you actually have a game plan. It's the same thing with getting married.
Mhm.
Like, same thing with a relationship, like, or a conversation. Like, hey, why are we getting on the call? I mean, I just thought we could get on a call. We'll figure it out when we get there. well, I don't want to
Mm,
waste 30 minutes or an hour of my life with you. Like, let's talk about a little bit. I understand we're going to have some things that may come up or something comes up in conversation, but I want to know what we're going to talk about so I can be intentional with my time, so I
right.
can make sure this money's going to good use. So selling that vision and painting the picture of that vision is what you have to do ultimately when it comes to pitching for investment money or just pitching your product or service in general.
Right. I know. I love that. And it's funny because as you're saying it, that's like, it goes back to marketing 101,
Yeah.
sell the benefits, not the features, right?
Yeah. The
We
sizzle,
know
not the steak, right?
exactly, right. And it's so funny because people don't, from us in the marketing world, we know that phrase has been said at least 10,000 times. But a lot of times people don't realize that applies in all these other areas as well, and that's part of that vision of what the result is going to be, as opposed to here's all the steps that it takes, is so powerful. So I love that. That's fascinating because I know so much in the speaking world, but that's an arena I'd never really thought about, as a piece of the speaking world. But that is something it makes perfect sense. So when you got clients that are coming to you, what do you see are, like, what's their number one issue above and beyond, I'm afraid to get in front of people? Because that's the obvious one. It's like, what is it when it comes to speaking, where people would rather be in the coffin than doing the eulogy?
Hmm.
What is the next thing above and beyond that people struggle with when they first come to you?
Clarity on their message. I can't
Okay.
tell you how many times, and you're going to laugh when I say this, but people just say, I want to get on stage. And then my next question is, okay, well, what are you going to talk about? I talk about anything. I just want to be on stage. Speaking is a business in itself. And this is what a lot of people don't get. And I was right there too. I'm guilty of this before I started getting into this world. I just thought, hey, I can go up there and speak. I would love the opportunity to go speak, but nobody's going to pay me. Nobody's going to want to listen to me if I'm just going to go up there and talk about anything. And so it's just like a business. If you market to everybody, if you are for everybody, then you're for nobody. You're not going to get any business. So it's the same thing for speaking. And what I have to work through is helping you figure out what is the message that you want to share. And that's where we start first, is what is the message that you want to share? And then we figure out who we're sharing it to, because that's the next step. Because if I want to talk about communication to a group of adults, well, I'm probably gonna be able to talk about a W-2 job, about owning a business. And I can talk about communication in meetings and how these things go wrong. But if I'm talking to a group of elementary students, they've never been in meetings before. They've never been in the real world where conversations get side railed all the time. I mean, they do that themselves naturally as kids because they can't pay attention, but I have to talk to them differently. So first thing is figure out what that message is, and then we focus on their audience after that. So that would be the thing that we have to figure out first, is let's get clear on what message you want to share in the first place, because you're not talking about everything.
Right. Well, and that is so critical. And I've had that for myself, like, as a coach working with clients. Because with me, I work on the follow up process, building the systems, the
Hmm.
machine that runs behind everything else of a speaking or a coaching business. And it has amazed me how many people, like, well, I want to have a book. Okay, what are you going to have your book about? I don't know yet. I want to have, and I'm going to do a course. Okay, so what's your course about? Well, I'm working on figuring that out. I'm thinking about doing a course on how to make money on the internet. Okay, well, what are you doing right now to make money on the internet? Well, I'm working on this book and I'm going to write this course. I'm like, wait a minute, no, huh? And so many people are that way. And
Yeah.
as of the time that we're recording this, we're seeing a lot of people who had jumped into the speaking and the coaching world, and now they're realizing, even a couple years into it, they've never really had a real business.
Yeah.
And it's because of that, what you're talking about, having that clarity of what is it you're talking about. And the reality is, it's not just what you're talking about, but what's the problem you solve?
Mm.
And that's where a lot of people haven't stopped and thought about that. What's
Hmm.
the problem you actually solve for people? Then you look at that's where your topic comes from, and that's where, then you go into your audience with that. And a lot of times people don't start with that first one, which means they never get to the second, which means they never get to the third one. And so it amazes me how many people have gotten into our industry and
Yeah.
and have struggled, and they haven't figured out, well, they don't have the foundations yet.
Yeah, and I was actually just on a sales call this morning talking with a potential prospect about this. And there's a shift coming in the market. Right now, we've seen a lot of
Mhm.
motivational speakers and rah-rah conferences and everything.
Yeah.
And there's a shift coming. And so if you can't actually give
Mhm.
tangible advice and help people get beyond just feeling motivated and feeling good, you're
Yep.
not going to do too well as a speaker. There's definitely places for motivational speakers from now and forever, because there are times where
Mhm.
you just need to be amped up. You need to be
Right.
told, yeah, let's go get everything that we came here for. I think of like football championships or something like that.
Mhm.
You're not going to teach me how to tackle better at the national title. No, I need motivation to go out there and destroy the other team right now. So there is still a place for that, but conferences right now are overrun by just motivational speakers making everything sound good, and they're essentially selling you snake oil, pixie dust, whatever you want to call it, because it's like, oh, buy my program, just like you were talking about with the person writing a book and then writing a program to go with the book about making sales online or making money online, and they've never made money online. That's exactly what a lot of these speakers are. They have no substance to that. So we're going to start seeing that, where people want more substance. They
Yeah.
want more actual tangible takeaways that I have a problem, I need it solved. Oh, Eli, you solved this problem for me. Great. I'm coming to listen to you, or I'm going to come work with you, whatever. I'm going to listen
Mhm.
to you as a speaker, and then we'll work together afterwards, because I realize you can help solve my problem now. Or I'm going to go to
Yeah.
this conference because it's on sales, on marketing, on business leadership, whatever it is, because I know I'm going to get the takeaways I need to fix this problem in my business. So if you're out there, you feel like you're not great at motivating people, but you're maybe more that logical person right now, that you just help with solving problems, or you speak more in this logical manner. One,
Mhm.
you need to learn to get a little bit more persuasive and get better with storytelling for sure, but your time is coming. You just
Yeah.
need to go put in those reps. You need to keep putting yourself out there, because the market is shifting to wanting more actual knowledge. We are inundated with so much out there in the ether, the internet, all of that good stuff, with just information.
Yeah.
But none of it is actually applicable, or a lot of it is not applicable. And so if you can start being that speaker that can help people apply that knowledge, not just talk about something to make it sound good, but actually help them apply, you're going to do so much better in the long run.
Yes, and I couldn't agree with you more. I've had that conversation with several people lately,
Hmm.
and there's definitely a big shift going on. I'm looking forward to where things are going to go, because we're finding so many of what you're talking about. They sound really good, but there's no meat to it at the end.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, for me, that's for me, it's like, okay, what are the tangible pieces, what are the action steps that are so important? And that's what I help with my clients, like, okay, here's the system. I'm not selling that you can get on stage and make $1 million in 45 minutes speaking on stage, because is that possible? Yes, I have actually seen it happen, but there is so much more behind the scenes that needs to happen, and like
Yeah.
that's the part most people forget about. And so for me, when I see a speaker, that's one of the things that for me is like, okay, what are the actual step by step pieces that we're doing? And when I go to an event, I'm looking for 1, 2, maybe 3 actionable nuggets, and if I don't get those, I'm bored, I'm done.
Yeah.
We've both been to those events where they're just a whole bunch of rah rah, and sometimes yelling and screaming and belittling people from stage, which we've those I never understand. But then at the end, you're like, okay, though, that was interesting, but what do I do now?
Yeah.
And they don't have that.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. It's you want to make sure that you're becoming that person. And if you are already that person, what you really need to work on is persuasive communication, which goes back to storytelling, selling that vision,
Mhm.
sharing stories with the information sprinkled in there. And you can have a slide. John Maxwell, actually, he's probably one of the best communicators out there, and definitely the father of leadership. And I just read his latest book, 16 Laws of Communication, or something like that. I forget exactly what it is,
Okay.
but he has bullet points on all his stuff, and he'll go in and share stories, and then bullet points and share stories. And I think that's a great way, especially for you logical thinkers and speakers out there,
Hmm.
is to do something like John Maxwell does, because people, they listen to stories, they pay attention to stories, but they can only remember like through bullet points. So you giving them bullet points and then kind of like telling them what you're going to talk about and then sharing the story around that and then summarizing what you just talked about is the best way to do it, because people learn more based on how you make them feel, and they remember more based on how you make them feel. So if it's a great story, one they're, I mean, they're on the edge of their seat, they're engaged in
Right.
it, that's a story that they're going to remember, and that's going to help them remember the information. But when you give those bullet points and summarize it as well, you've given them the information 3 times, and through repetition they can remember. But also with bullet points, they can take notes on those bullet points real quick, and through your story you're giving a lot more detail, so hopefully fills in those gaps for them. So that's kind of, I didn't mean to go into that, but that's kind of a method I like to use when I'm sharing different topics or different points within my overarching topic, my
Yeah.
overarching theme when it comes to me speaking on a stage and not necessarily pitching or anything like that, like a startup or funding round or anything. But I
Hmm.
like to do that where I'll go in and I'll say, hey, here's what we're going to talk about today, essentially. And then I go and tell stories around what those ideas are that I want to share. And
Hmm.
then I summarize at the end of, hey, here's what we talked about today. And not literally that, but that's in a nutshell how I go about presenting, because it gives
Right.
people 3 times they heard it, if not more than that, depending on how much time I have and how many stories I share around each idea.
Yeah. So first off, you did not need to apologize for saying going down that rabbit hole, because that was a perfect rabbit hole, honestly. Because there's you said a couple really important things, and I want to reiterate what you said with that, because this is very, very important, and probably one of the most important things if you're getting on stage and you're speaking that you can learn. And Philip just gave it to you. Okay, so number one, it is okay to have slides with bullet points on it. It's just how you do it. Okay. That's really important, because now everybody now is like pitching bullet points, death by PowerPoint and all that kind of stuff. There's definitely, there's definitely a point of that. But having those bullet points also helps the people that are more analytical, our engineers, have that list to work off of. And so it's not an either or, it's a
Mm.
combination of both. And the other thing that you said that I think is really important, and people need to listen to this, is literally go back and listen to what he just said again, like 5 times, if you're in the speaking world at all, because this is a personal pet peeve of mine. If you're going to tell a story, you have to have a point. You have to have a point. Um, I literally was at a speaking event that had a lot of speakers. They were talking about and most of it was them telling their trauma stories.
Mm.
Okay. Now there's a time and a place for that, but that was the entire presentation, and it was multiple speakers back to back. That's all they did was tell a trauma story.
Ah.
Um, I had to leave the room because I was going into a depression state. It was so bad. And it's like, okay, there's a point where telling your story is important, but you have to come back out the other side. It's like we've all heard about the hero's journey. You have that low point when you think everything is, gone to hell. And then but you have to bring it back up, and you have to bring it what were the action steps you took to survive that, to overcome that. And a lot of times people are missing those points. And I like what you said there. You brought this into, you have a lesson, you have something you're teaching, and you're interjecting it with the story as opposed to just a story,
Yeah.
because we don't tell
Yeah.
a story just to tell a story. That's narcissism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you saying that makes me think of 2 things. So one thing I heard from somebody, I wish I would have thought of this myself, but if you put so much information on a PowerPoint, and you're not trying to withhold information, but if you put all the information you're going to share on a PowerPoint, what's the point of you being there? That was not a pun meant there. But what's your purpose for being there speaking if literally everything is on the PowerPoint, all the information that you can share that you're going to talk about is there. So that's one reason why you need to do bullet points. Plus, yeah, death by PowerPoint. If you have a huge block of text, people are going, oh my gosh, they're going to roll their eyes back and into the back of their head and they're just going to go to sleep. They're not going to listen. You're like, wow, this is going to take forever. Or you're going to start reading that. So bullet points are great, and then pictures. But then the other side with sharing your story, people, I had this question come up. Well, you say share your story, but what part do I share? Because there's a lot of my story. I can talk about my whole life. And that was a question I really never thought, because in my mind, it's like, well, you just share the part that makes the most sense. Well, if you're wondering, if you're asking that same question, well, when you share your story, what part do you share? You share the part of your life that makes sense to the point that you're trying to get to. Not just share, oh, let me tell you about my trauma filled childhood, and let me go into how I got to all these riches now, and I've got all these great things in life. No, we don't need your whole life story. Tell me a little portion of your life that relates with the point that you want to share with me, but also helps you relate with me, because the audience is thinking about, how can you help me right now? And if all you do is just talk about you, how great you are, how terrible your life was, you never bring it back to a point, and you never bring it back to your audience, you've lost them. Your story makes no sense at all. There's no point in it. So share the portion of your personal side, your story, that has a point to it, number one. And then number two, will relate with that audience. I would not talk about being a millionaire to a bunch of homeless people. I would talk
Mhm.
about how I remember when I had nothing, and I just felt like I was worthless. I felt like life couldn't be any better than this. But I did these 3 steps to help me get out of that. And so if you want to get out of that today, do these 3 steps over
Mhm.
time, and you will eventually get out of the place you're in right now. They're going to
Yeah.
relate with that as a homeless person versus, it's great as a millionaire. I've got my Bugatti over here. I've got a Lamborghini over there. I've got 3 houses, one on the lake, one in the mountains, one in Europe. No, they're not going to relate with that. So use your story that
Mhm.
relates with that audience.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. And I think it's really important to be, for me as a speaker, I'm very much into, I'm just a person that has some cool stuff I like to share. That's it.
Yeah.
And even, I've had people come to me and ask me my speaking advice, and I'm not a speaker coach. I coach with speakers to help them with their systems and their foundational business stuff. But I've been a speaker since 2008. So, I've got that experience, and I've had people come to me and I'm like, the number one thing you have to remember is that it's just a conversation.
Yeah.
Don't think about it as you speaking in front of 10 people or 10,000 people. It doesn't matter. You're just having a conversation, and there's other people hanging out listening. That's all it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And I've had, if somebody that we know, how the brain just fried on his name all of a sudden,
I'm
Faulkner.
going to guess Steve Gamlin.
No, not Steve.
Okay. Steve's
Um,
great.
yeah, Steve is great. Steve is awesome. He was one of my early on guests on the show already, which is
Nice.
awesome. He's a great guy. But I had somebody else come to me, and he was doing his first presentation, and that's what I told him. He's like, it was a virtual thing, and he was like, I got my first presentation on Saturday, and I'm really nervous about it. I don't know what to do. So, do you have any advice for first timers? And I'm like,
Mm.
reality is, you know your stuff. Don't question that. All you have to do is have a conversation and teach some stuff that's going to make their life better.
Yeah.
That's it. Don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I saw him afterwards at an actual live event, and he was like, "Man, that presentation was so good. Everybody loved it. Thank you so much." And I'm like, "Oh, it's you really have to think about it that way. Don't overthink it.
Mhm.
Make it about a good conversation. And you got to have a point. You got to teach good stuff." And that's one thing that always drives me nuts. Is like I get to the end, I'm like, okay, what was the point of that conversation, right? Because to me, it's a conversation. It's like, what are
Yeah.
we, how are we interacting, and what are we getting from each other in this conversation that we're having? And if I don't get that, even from a speaker on stage, especially from a speaker on stage, then I'm like, well, okay, that was kind of a waste of time.
Yeah.
And, our time is the only finite thing we have. So we got to be careful about that. And we need to be aware of that for other people's lives too.
Yeah. And I like to say with that, like, remember, it's not about you, it's about your audience, and then serve your audience. If you
Yes.
can forget about yourself, remember it's not about you, and then
Mm-hmm.
serve your audience, you're going to do well on your message, because it's just like commission breath. If I'm up there, I'm all about me, I'm just trying to make sure I look great and boast myself. People are going to be so turned off by you. But if you
Mm-hmm.
are pouring into that audience and you're trying to serve them with all the information that you can and just put everything out there for them, they're going to love you.
Yep.
So
Oh
don't
yeah.
have commission breath on stage. They can smell it even from stage.
I love it. I love it, my friend. All right. So as we're starting to wrap up here, this has been an awesome conversation. Got two last questions for you. Second to the last question, super easy. This is the Meet Cool People show. So what does meeting cool people mean to you?
Meeting cool people means to me is, I mean, literally meeting cool people, but meeting people that are doing different and unique things that you're not doing, that maybe you've never heard of. And just to use an example of like a business, I was in Charleston, South Carolina one time, and there's literally a business. They have all these horse carriage rides, and they're pulled by Clydesdales and stuff. There's literally a business that picks up the poop and cleans the pee off the streets for all those horse carriage rides as you go around the historical districts and everything. And so converting that into cool people, there's people that do really unique jobs or unique things. They have a unique background. It's really cool to learn from them, because that's something you can take and get a different perspective on yourself. So that's what I love about meeting cool people.
Awesome. I love it. That was a great. And it's amazing when you find out some of the things that people do for jobs is like, I never thought about that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
they have like a
Maybe they,
GPS tracker and everything. Like, I mean, it was
mm-hmm.
all sophisticated. And they also
Right.
do like a little tennis ball with a flag out there. So just
Mm-hmm.
in case the GPS went down. Yeah, interesting. I'm like,
Nice.
wow, literally anything. Like
That
horse
is
poop.
It's hilarious. I love it. All right. Well, this has been cool. Thank you so much, my friends. So, one last question. Obviously, people are going to need to find out more about you, and we would do want to, bring up. I mentioned it in the introduction. You've got your podcast, so tell people what's the best way for people to get more of you.
The ultimate best way is to go to my website, speakingsessions.com. There you'll be able to find the podcast, all my coaching offerings, my webinars, all of that is all hosted on there. It also links back to my social media. But follow me on Facebook or LinkedIn. It's Philip Sessions with one L. The Real Philip Sessions on Facebook and Philip Sessions on LinkedIn. Unfortunately, I had to go with the Real Philip Sessions because Philip Sessions was already taken on Facebook. But you can find me there. But speakingsessions.com is the best place really to go.
Awesome. And they could find all your social from there as well, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, my friend. It is a pleasure having you here. And you and I always have good conversations. As we were way overdue. It's time for us to have another one anyway. So might as well record it and share it with everybody.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Because we're that cool. We're that awesome.
That's
Every
right.
conversation's recorded from now on.
Yeah. I always forget about that one. It's like, oh yeah, I should have recorded that because I said something smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap up here. Everybody get out there. Have an amazing week. As always, you guys know, reach out. If there's anything I can do to help you out, let me know. Take care. And that wraps up another Meet Cool People show. Now, if you like what you heard, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, or review so I can help introduce these amazing cool people to even more amazing cool people. And just remember, meeting cool people is just the beginning. You need to have a system in place to follow up with the amazing people that you meet. This is exactly what we do for our clients. If you'd like to see if my team and I can help you, go to followuprockstar.com and check out the case study video to see exactly how we're helping our clients turn casual connections into cash clients for life. Again, go to followuprockstar.com and we'll see how we can work together to turn you into a follow-up rockstar.